So I'm here with Dan Woodall, this Electrosonics. There's been a lot of kind of talk the past couple days about SONAURA. This is a new thing from Rode, from Friedman Group. Take us through, what is SONAURA?
So SONAURA is a completely new concept in, I guess, studio grade microphones. So we're all familiar with MEMS microphones that we have in our sort of smartphones and things like that. And they've always offered some advantages, but to date, the problem that's never been solved is getting the noise floor acceptable for professional use. You know, they've always been hissy, essentially, right? And the breakthrough with SONAURA was, what the Friedman Group was able to do was figure out a design that actually overcame that barrier, yeah? And so this capsule has a noise floor of just 11 dBA. And that was achieved, interestingly enough, by actually making it bigger. So we think of MEMS as being tiny, and we'll see how small it is in a minute, but this is actually, in MEMS terms, a large diaphragm MEMS microphone.
A large diaphragm condenser right here.
So obviously what a MEMS microphone is, it's a microphone that's not made with traditional microphone sort of manufacturing techniques where you build like a backplate and a diaphragm and then have to clamp them together. This is built using semiconductor fabrication techniques. So the diaphragm in this is actually built up in layers as part of that, sort of lithographing etching process. So that makes these things very small, very reliable, and very well matched as well. So each of these SONAURA capsules is matched to each other by half a dB or so.
That's incredible.
So, the repeatability is obviously, a real another selling.
So if you got to swap a mic out mid-shoot, you're not going to have a big difference?
No, they are literally just like, you lay them on top of each other. In fact, it's interesting, when we were testing these in our acoustic sort of test facility in Sydney, we tested like 20 of these, and then our acousticians dropped all the plots over top of one another, and their initial thought that there was a mistake because all the lines just disappeared. And then they realized, oh, actually they're all just underneath each other.
Oh, that's amazing.
Whereas normally you just see a little bit of variance, obviously, even in high-end mics, So,
yeah, that's cool. So let's go take a look at the actual size. Take us through, what is this wafer?
So what you're looking at here is essentially a silicon wafer, and this is how the process, this sort of semiconductor manufacturing process works. So you start with a very, very pure crystal of silicon in this wafer form. This is a single crystal of silicon. And then what happens is you basically use lasers to etch a pattern into that silicon. And so by creating sort of different arrangements, because silicon, of course, is a semiconductor. So by affecting the size of different channels and the shapes in that silicon, you can actually create different electrical properties. Then you can also use a number of other techniques to deposit other materials on top. So you can deposit kind of other types of metals on top of that sort of topology that you're building up layer by layer by layer. And then you can also use chemical etching to remove layers. So you might put some sort of material in there, then put a layer of different material over the top, and then you can etch away the material underneath to create kind of a cavity. And that's what happens, that's what it's done when they create the diaphragm. And the diaphragm that's created using this process is actually two diaphragms coupled together. It's a dual diaphragm design, and the diaphragm is completely sealed. So what that means is it's effectively impervious to water, because all the electronics and all the sort of active part that actually measures the sort of movement of the diaphragm is actually encapsulated between the two layers of the diaphragm. So, it makes it really, impervious to sort of moisture and dust and all that.
And we're going to test that out in a second, but I just want to draw a little bit of attention to the size of the wafer. We're talking about 6.5, 7-inch wafer.
Yeah, I think 200 millimeters, or 300 millimeters.
And then you have the rest of this case filled up with, and I think this was lost in translation during the announcement of how big SONAURA is. Because in video, it looks like it has some heft to it. It's tiny, like it's so small.
Yeah, so this is on a 4x5 millimeter footprint. So it's really, really small. As I said, in MEMS terms, it's quite large. It's certainly larger than the MEMS you have in your smartphone. But of course, this makes it very suitable for sort of lavaliers and things like that. But you're not just going to see this in lavaliers. That was our first product. It was kind of an obvious first step. But this is a studio grade microphone capsule right there, that tiny little thing. And so you're going to see across the Friedman Group this being integrated into quite a few different products over the coming years.
And we're going to talk about the lavalier in just a second. Just give us a second, but let's go see what happens when you dip this SONAURA in water. So we'll cut to over here.
Sorry, I'm just going to do a bit of filming with these guys. I'll be with you shortly.
Okay, so how does this, before we start shooting, how does this go?
Electrosonics make a completely waterproof transmitter, which is the DSSM.
That's cool.
Which is, it's used in theaters. This is currently used, for example, on the Harry Potter stage show, because they have water scenes and they needed something that would work, when the actors were immersed. So this has been around for about a year. It's one of our newer products, but it's a really cool thing. And that's obviously then hooked up to the Sonora, the L1 Sonora Lab, which is also waterproof. And then we've got just a Bluetooth speaker to play some music in here. But as the robot moves it up and down, now you can actually listen to what this is doing.
So it's out from the water right now and it's clear. That's such a clear sound too. It's going in. That's so cool. You can hear the water. And you can hear as it come, whoo!
Yeah,
you hear that.
You hear the surface tension of the water being broken, going in and out, right?
That's so cool.
It's really interesting.
It messes with your mind hearing that and seeing it in real time. Now, in case you're wondering about what does Sonora sound like, can you hear Sonora? I've been mic'd up with Sonora the whole time, so this is Sonora being used with the Electrosonics belt pack and all of that stuff. And this is the stuff that we're going to be able to look forward to across the board with Electrosonics, as well as road products for the future. Thank you very much, Dan.
It's been a pleasure. Lovely to see you, Aidan. It's always fun to chat.